Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. It is Thursday, the 2nd of October. Thank you for joining me. A cold front, another one, is moving into New Zealand at the moment. Look at all the thunderstorms offshore early this morning and just after sunrise. But basically, once the sun came up, a lot of those showers fell apart. But we're still going to be seeing some heavy showers moving across the country, especially on the western side of New Zealand and some northern areas over the next 24 hours or so as all of this starts to move on through. High cloud pushing here. You can see it coming in over the South Island and up around the eastern North Island, and some cool ripple clouds here coming off the Kaimai Ranges around western parts of Bay of Plenty this morning. So here is the air pressure map. We've got a big high north of New Zealand, and that is the reason why some northern areas are experiencing mild winds. To give you an example, it was about -6 degrees in Middlemarch, Otago this morning, but it was plus 17 degrees up in the far north. So quite a big spring difference in temperatures from the top of New Zealand to the southern end of the country. We've also got some low pressure building here, a weak area of low pressure off the west coast, larger one near Tasmania, the biggest one of all, just south of that, down towards over the Southern Ocean, close to Antarctica. So we've got a few things going on at the moment, but the low pressure zone, that is moving in, and it is going to get a little bit larger as we go into the weekend. And part of the reason why, the high pressure system up here is moving along eastwards, and that allows all of this to move in. And so we've got some wet weather. I just showed you the thunderstorms isolated as they come in on Friday, but you've got pockets of heavy rain and showers. Otherwise, just the usual kind of stuff moving on through, but worth monitoring that tomorrow. It may be a little bit unstable. Further to the south, northerly winds coming in, so your temperatures will be going up after the cold morning this morning. Still may be cold inland with a few frosts sort of right up into the mountains and the usual kind of spots, but otherwise you should notice that slightly more northerly breeze kicking in on Friday. So let's go into the weekend. Low pressure, that is the main feature of the weekend. And like I said yesterday, large lows can cause instability, and that means you end up with areas of rain, dry spells, and it all circles around itself, and it depends on the placement of the low, the timing of it. In other words, expect your forecast to chop and change or break a wee bit this weekend, because it is not going to be raining non-stop for everybody. But the good news here, at least, based on this current map, is that as this all comes in and around the North Island, some of that rain comes into the driest parts, Hawke's Bay and Wide Upper. Now, it may not be a huge amount, but you've got a chance of some rain there, and a bit of instability around the South Island due to that low. So in other words, exactly how you see that rain map is not exactly how it may look on the day. It's very tricky with lows, and we get the most complaints, not just at Weather Watch, but all forecasters get the most complaints about how inaccurate forecasts can be in New Zealand, because low pressure zones around an island in the roaring 40s is tricky work. So as we go into Sunday, the polar airflow kind of snaps off this part up here to the north. Now that doesn't really make a huge difference to most of you, but what it can do is enhance the showers and make a few more thunderstorms or just a bit of instability around. So Sunday and Saturday, both are similar in the sense that there'll be rain, showers, isolated thunderstorms potentially, but also some dry spells in there too. It's not raining non-stop for most areas. But you see here on Sunday, more of a southerly flow coming in around the country as the low pressure zone starts to move eastwards. Now we start to get that southerly change behind it all, and also the next big high way up over towards Australia. So as we kick off next week, that high east of Queensland over the Coral Sea, the Tasman Sea, full of westerly winds, and that is basically how next week is shaping up. A lot of windy westerlies are coming on in, so lower part of the South Island, the lower half, noticing those west to northwest winds really picking up as you go through the day, and then they'll start to pick up further northwards around Cook Strait. Generally a windy westerly in most places. It might be a bit more northwest in some areas, and you've got showers turning to rain down here on the west coast, southern half of the west coast, showers in the northern half, and a couple of showers around the western North Island. Otherwise, northern and eastern areas are dry as we go into Monday. But we've got these surges of wind. So this is Monday night. So the worst of those winds have gone from southern areas further up into Canterbury. It's not going to go right across the whole Canterbury Plains, but obviously the closer you are to the mountains and the foothills, the more likely you are to notice or feel that very strong nor'wester, which up in the mountains could be going up to 130, 140 kilometre an hour gusts. In the lower North Island, also windy, although not necessarily problematic, but the winds could be picking up because as we jump through here to 1 o'clock Tuesday, the windy weather has continued to go further up the country. So a surge of strong westerlies in the lower North Island as we go through Tuesday of next week, and kind of gusty conditions elsewhere. The red shading means it's getting up to gale force. So there'll be marine gales really right around New Zealand as we go into next week. So windy weather carries on because of high pressure north of New Zealand, low pressure south of us. These lows and the northern highs mean we are smack bang in the windy westerlies. That is classic spring weather, and it's also at the right time of the year. Usually around about October, the start of it, the first couple of weeks of it can be the windiest of the year for us, generally speaking, across the whole country. And you can see here, no lack of isobars, the whole screen covered in them due to very low pressure down here, 950, 940 hectopascals and 1020 just up there to the north. Polar air comes back in around the lower South Island, and it may just clip a little bit of Wider Upper, but I doubt you'll really notice it too much because your winds are really coming out of Australia, so it's not going to be overly cold. By Wednesday of next week, another surge of windy weather as the next low moves closer to the lower part of the South Island. And we've still got our high up there, which is, I said this yesterday in the other video, it's like a ceiling. So it sits up there and the wind can only go up to a certain point before it just gets squeezed and gets windier around New Zealand. So gale force west to northwest winds, they'll be popping up in certain areas. Obviously our mountains and ranges mean that some of you will be sheltered without having too much of a problem. But the wind will be off and on across next week. Wednesday perhaps warming up just a little bit further as our airflow is almost entirely coming out of the Australia region. Now by Thursday, low pressure south of us 1 week from today surges up closer to the South Island, while the high pressure zone north of us gets just a little bit bigger and stronger. So again, windy weather around New Zealand. Strongest winds will be around the South Island, Cook Strait. A few showers around the North Island. A couple of those might even be a little bit heavy, but really most of the rain is in the west coast, and most of that rain is in the southern half of the west coast. In other words, down where it should be. Our national park, rainforest is the word I was trying to look for, here in Fiordland, getting some of the heavier totals. So that's why we're seeing the rainfall down around Fiordland and South Westland over the next couple of weeks, maybe 400 millimetres or 500 millimetres in some locations as these westerlies pile up all the rain along the western side. And another surge of gusty weather comes in on Thursday night. Damaging winds in the purple are possible. For the most part, it's right into the mountains and the ranges, but we've got viewers who live in those areas, and windy weather returns once more through Cook Strait. So let's make sense of the 7-day rainfall. This is it in a very quick animation, and you see how it builds up over here on the west coast. So the southern half of the west coast has the highest rainfall. If you're further up around Greymouth and Westport, you may not even reach 100 millimetres, but you're getting close to it, as is the Central Plateau, the mountains there, and other regions, Taranaki, Waikato, where I'm getting a few people saying, turn the rain off, please. You do have more wet weather coming. It's about average to slightly more than average at the moment in those western areas. Eastern areas, a little bit of rain relief hopefully coming in around Hawke's Bay and parts of Wider Upper, and also Marlborough as well, but Canterbury looks pretty dry except for some of the spillover coming down those rivers. That's all from me. I'll see you again tomorrow, Friday, with our next New Zealand update.